All right, welcome back to another Finance Friday. Welcome. If you're new here, my name is Jerry. I'm the owner, founder, CEO of a company called Wealth Dynamics. And this is our Friday webinar. We've been doing these for several years. And the purpose is to create financially literate families and individuals. Okay. Financially literate, meaning you know how money works, you know the truth about money, you know how to apply it in your life, you know how to educate your friends and family on it. That's part of knowing the truth, is sharing it with other people. And so we spend every Friday doing this. So I want to appreciate everyone that's here tonight. If you're on Facebook, great to see you. Be sure that you share the stream out. If you're on Zoom, great to see you as well. If you're here watching the replay, doesn't matter if you can't make it live. We're happy to see you on board and making the time to view this. Now, tonight's course is called Speed and Financial Freedom. Okay, Speed and Financial Freedom. This is one of my favorite topics because I love going fast. Okay, anyone that knows me knows that I love to do things as quickly as possible. I'm a fast talker. I'm a fast eater. I work fast. I do everything fast. And I'm even kind of the guy where when something is not fast, it really kind of bothers me. I don't like waiting and I'm not very patient. Okay. So I'm going to be talking to two groups tonight. Some of you are like me, right? Some of you are watching this and you're like, I'm exactly like that. I like things to go quickly. I like things to go as fast as possible. Some of you aren't, right? And so some of you, when you hear me talking about going fast, it's going to put you on edge a little bit and it's going to stress you out because you want to make sure things are done correctly. Now, I'm one of those unique individuals that when I make mistakes, I learn. Okay. And what I mean by that is with the fast thing, one of my downfalls and one of the things I've learned is fast doesn't always mean good. Right. And so there's a tension that we're going to talk about tonight. That is, I want to go fast. I want to achieve financial freedom, but I also want to do it correctly. Right. Speed should never come at the cost of quality. And ideally, I should be able to have both. And I think it's a false idea that you can't have both. So this idea that, for the fast people, quality means slow. That's not what it means. Right. And for those that value quality and maybe taking things a little bit slower, speed doesn't mean we lack quality. We can have both of those things. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk about tonight. And this is one of my favorite topics because I feel like there's two different camps here and we really could all be one camp. Right? One camp, all of us going fast, all of us achieving greater financial freedom. Now, before I dive into this tonight, I want to lay down my ground rules like I do every week. Number one is make sure that you have your purpose, your unique purpose for being here watching this training. Okay. If you don't have a purpose, might as well sign off, right? Because you're not going to learn anything and you're not going to apply it. It's a waste of your time. You could be watching Netflix or whatever you would rather be doing with your Friday night or with your time watching this replay, right? So if you're going to be here for an hour, why are you here? What are you trying to learn? What are you trying to apply? This isn't just entertainment, right? I'm not here just to be your Friday night, muse, right? I want to make sure that you get financially literate. Okay, so I want to state that intention. Second intention is, you want to make sure that you've removed this, just like I have to, Nano has to, our clients have to, Lexi has to, remove the idea that you already know it all. There's always more to learn. The most ignorant statement that can be made is, I already know this. I've already heard this before. I've already learned this. I've already done this. I've already watched this. I've already read this. Okay. And it's not even a statement of understanding. It's a statement of excusing myself from having to continue learning. I already know this. The box is checked. Therefore, I don't have to be involved anymore. Right. It actually means I probably don't understand it, because someone that understands it realizes, man, there's a lot more to learn because I can always improve. And if I'm not at the very best I could possibly ever be at, meaning I've maxed out my potential and there's no more room for improvement, then there's something for me to learn, right? So make sure that you've got that down, because some of what we cover, you might be like, oh, I've heard this before. Jerry has talked about this before. I've watched this on Wealth Dynamics University. I've read this. That's great, right? But you want to make sure you have repetition. We're going to talk about repetition today. And then also make sure that you have on your hat as a producer, not a consumer, right? This is not a Gucci belt. This is not a Netflix binge watch. This is not fast food. This is not a fine dining experience. This is not a first class flight where we serve you and serve you. No, this is you freaking going to the financial gym, right? So you're here to work. You're here to produce. You're here to actually, output energy rather than intake energy and consume it. So put that mindset in place so that way you have even more reinforcement on, okay, what am I going to learn? How am I going to apply this? How do I make sure that I'm removing any mental barriers that might prevent me from learning and might prevent me from getting better tonight? Because at the end of tonight, you're either going to be the better than you were, or you're going to be the same. And which one it is totally up to you. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into tonight's course. And again, we will go live at the end. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments. If you're on Facebook, we'll answer your questions live. If you're on Zoom, I'll mic up and go live with you and we'll chat about your questions and comments. And think about throughout this, like, how do I struggle in these areas? How can I apply this? What problems or obstacles might I run into? What clarifications would I like to make, maybe through a question and answer session, and drop those in the comments so we can address them. All right, so our topic, speed and financial freedom. Two different things. One of them is speed, right? The other is financial freedom. Financial freedom is what we talk about all the time. We talk about the blueprint of financial freedom. We talk about different levels of financial freedom. We talk about how to get there and how to do it in the right sequence, the right order, the right way. Okay. One thing we also will talk about is speed. How do we get there in the most optimal amount of time? Okay. Now, before we can really dive into this topic, we have to understand the definitions of the words that we're going to be using. So the first word here is speed. Okay. This is the dictionary definition of speed. Speed means the rate at which someone or something is able to move or operate. So we're given an alternative there. I'm going to read that back to you again. The rate at which someone or something is able to move or operate. Okay. Now, as I'm reading this definition, the first thing that came to mind for me is that move and operate don't mean the same thing. Okay. One of them has a certain level of purpose and intelligence and format and sequence, right? The other one just entails motion. There's no format, there's no sequence, there's no purpose, there's no real structure to it. So the first thing that I want to have us clarify is, are we looking to simply move, or are we looking to operate? When we're looking at financial freedom, is it just movement that we're going for? Right? In any random direction, like, oh, as long as I moved and it was a fast movement, I'm happy. Okay, because that's how I used to be. Like I said, I used to be stuck on the fast thing. It's got to be fast. It's got to be fast. It's got to be fast. Right? And so I would move, but it wasn't purposeful. It didn't have meaning. It didn't accomplish much of anything. But for me, I was like, oh, I moved. It felt good. It's like my dog Samson. When I take him out on a walk, he doesn't know where his final destination is going to be. He just knows he's going there. And so he'll never pick a destination and just go in all directions at once. He's like, boom, I'm going to go over here. Boom, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go backwards. Right? And he's moving and it's exciting for him, but he's not like, okay, I'm going to walk over there, go to the bathroom, and I want to get there as fast as I can, finish that cycle, and then start a new one. No. He's just dispersed. Right? So, sorry, Samson. I don't mean to throw you under the bus like that, buddy. He's in front of me on the beanbag sleeping, but he didn't hear any of that. So we're talking about movement and operation. Movement is a dispersal. Okay. Right. So there's dispersals and there are flows. This is something I've learned. A dispersal means that it's just an outward explosion of energy and force. Right. Think about it like a bomb, right? If you blow up a bomb, it's very hard for you to direct where that force is going to go. That's the point of a bomb, is you can't be very accurate. So you drop a bomb in the general area and it's just going to hit everything. It's going to hit the bad guys. It's going to hit the civilians. It's going to blow up all the buildings. And you're willing to take the risk of those casualties to kill the bad guy with a bomb, right? Versus a flow. A flow is like, like a sharpshooter, like, very definitely the target, and you're only going to hit that target. You're not going to hit all the little kids running around. You're not going to hit the buildings. We're not going to hit the civilians. We're just getting that one target. Okay. Now, the difference here is with finances, it's not automated. It's not like you drop a bomb on your finances and it's like, boom, it blew up all the bad stuff, but also we achieved all the good stuff too. No, you actually have to put energy behind this. So when you talk about movement and speed just for the sake of movement, which is a dispersal, it means you are running off in all directions, which takes your time and it takes your energy and it takes you away from running towards the good things, right? So this dispersal and just random movement for the sake of speed, it doesn't work with finances. This is not an area where you can just go off in all directions and it's a good thing. It's actually going to distract you and slow you down, right? So we want to operate. What are we operating? We're operating along the blueprint to financial freedom. This is our roadmap. This is what we do. These are the steps we take. And so we talk about movement. We're talking about a flow. We're going from one step to the next. Like a current, it flows in a definite direction. Okay. It doesn't just boom and it goes everywhere, right? It's not a geyser, it's a current. And so the current is going to take us through a certain pathway. It's going to take us over certain obstacles, through certain channels, and it's going to go the route that it's going to go. Right? Now, no river is straight. So sometimes it's going to be some different winds and turns and things that if we're riding in the current, we might be like, oh man, this moment right now takes a long time. Right? But from A to B, to get from A to B, I would much rather be in a definite current than riding a geyser and hoping that when it blows up, I accidentally land on point B. And so that's what I want to talk about first, right? Now, again, this definition of speed, the rate at which someone or something is able to move or operate, is very interesting. I looked at this definition and I also saw an archaic definition, meaning it's no longer used, right? There's an archaic definition of speed, which means to make prosperous or successful, right? Who's ever heard the phrase Godspeed, right? Like when it's kind of like saying good luck, like Godspeed. That's where this comes from, right? They're saying make prosperous or successful. Like I'm wishing you prosperity and success, right? So it's very, to me, that was very funny and coincidental to think, okay, this idea of speed actually means to make prosperous or successful. Well, we're talking about prosperity, right? So speed and prosperity, by definition, they do go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive, okay? Now, in order to understand this speed thing, we have to understand that speed equals to make prosperous or successful with our finances. This is the area that we're talking about, right? So speed applied to anything else is not going to be the same as applied to here because it's a different arena. It's a different environment. It's like trying to compare the rules of playing golf with the rules of playing, football or soccer. They're different games. Like sure, some of the basic principles of physics and whatever might apply, and some of the rules might be somewhat tiny bit similar, but they're different games, they're different arenas, they're different environments. So all of the preconceived notions, decisions, ideas, beliefs that we have about speed applied to other areas of our life, whether it be at work or whether it be in a relationship or whether it be with eating dinner, whether it be with cooking or whether it be with cleaning the house, that's not finances. And so we have to get all of that out of our heads because this is not what we're applying it to. We're applying it to finances. So what I want you to do is remove all of your fixed ideas, all of your preconceived notions about what speed means, whether it's good, whether it's bad, how it works, and just have a blank slate. Because we're going to talk about with the topic of finances tonight, how does it work? Okay. Now, with that being said, there's an equation for speed. So if you look this up, speed equals distance over time, right? So S equals D over T. Right? Speed equals distance over time. This is the actual mathematical equation to calculate speed. So if I want to know how fast I'm going, I would take distance and divide it by time, right? So if I take my distance and divide it by time, that's going to tell me my speed. That's where we get things like, miles per hour or yards per second or whatever it is you're counting and whatever unit you're measuring with. Okay. So with finances, this same equation would apply. Okay. Speed equals distance over time. Now we need to understand a couple of things with this equation. First, we need to understand what is our distance, right? So what is the area that we're covering? Okay. What is our unit of measurement? Are we measuring, like for time, you could measure in minutes or seconds or hours or days or years or many different units. And that would be the dictation of your speed. So with finances, what are we measuring with, right? Are we measuring in years? Are we measuring it in blueprint phases? And so that's something we want to think about. Okay. So distance over time, that's going to be our speed. Now, the distance piece is important, right? So I drew this out. Distance is how long does it take us to go from A to B? The distance between A and B is the distance. Okay. So this is interesting because we can look at a lot of different distances. We can look at, okay, if I'm on, financial blueprints phase 0 and I'm financially illiterate and financially insolvent, I could measure the distance between now, illiterate and solvent, to being debt free. And that would be an A to B. How long is it going to take me to get there? Right. Or maybe I am already solvent and it's like, okay, I want to measure the distance between being a sophisticated investor, which is phase 4. And I'm currently on phase 2. That's a distance to go from 2 to 4. This is one of the reasons why we created a blueprint in numerical format. So it's easy to measure the distance. Otherwise, it's very subjective and esoteric to, like, if you just give someone a financial statement and say, what's the distance between you and your goal? Like, they're not going to really know what to do with that. Right. So there's many different goals. There's sub goals. Those sub goals, whether that's to get debt free or solvent or become, someone that pays very little in taxes or to earn passive income, all these different sub goals lead up to our main goal. Right. Now, what is our main goal? Our main goal is not even accredited. A lot of people get stuck on this accredited investor idea. No, the main goal is passive income greater than savings, expenses, and taxes. That's called financial independence. That's the main goal. Okay. So the distance between A, which is where I'm at, so I'm here, and B, which is PI greater than set or financial independence, that's my distance. So let's say I'm on phase 1, right? PI greater than set. This is going to happen on I believe phase 6. This is the great thing about having this book, is you can just pull up your blueprint on the back page. Yeah, phase 5 is accredited, and then phase 6 is financial independence. So from phase 1, let's say, to phase 6, that means I have to get through 5 phases. How long is that going to take me? Okay, that's the first thing that comes to my head. How much time is going to elapse? Now, the thing I want to hit on this, and again, this is tough because I want to go fast, but I also want to do it right. Okay, the first thing I want to hit is if you are a client of Wealth Dynamics and you're following the blueprints, it doesn't matter how fast you're going to go. Anything is better than what you were doing before. Right? What were you doing before? You were playing kissy face with Wall Street and the banks. You were paying taxes out your butt. You were pursuing the dream of retirement so that when you're 65, you can finally have not even passive income greater than savings, expenses, and taxes, a nest egg that you were going to sell off over time, and hopefully you were going to die before you ran out of money. That was your goal probably before you met Wealth Dynamics. Anything we do from there is an improvement. Tamara says she was doing nothing. That's an improvement over doing nothing, right? So looking at that and saying, okay, like time is important, speed is important, but it should not be a fixation. It should not be something I'm so stuck on that I'm tempted to do some stuff we're going to talk about later, skip steps, go out of sequence, look for shortcuts, put band-aids on long-term problems with short-term solutions. Like there's a lot of things that speed for me motivated me to do that weren't good ideas, right? Like they were things that, I thought it was going to be this great thing that would give me, an extra bump in speed. And then later it all fell apart. I would have to go back and fix that area, and it would actually drag me down and slow me down. I can tell you that from personal experience, right? So the goal being passive income greater than savings, expenses, and taxes. That's where we're going. Where I'm at being wherever I am at, whether that's, phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, phase 4, it doesn't matter. This is the distance between where I'm at and that PI greater than set. Okay. And the speed is going to be mentioned here in a little bit on how we're going to get there. So the first question we've got to be able to ask is, where are we going? Right? Like don't even ask, where am I at first? I want you asking, where am I going? Because where am I at? You already know that answer, and it's going to get you stuck on where you're at and why you're there and all the problems and all the obstacles and how it's impossible and too hard. And you're just going to start pulling all this random bullshit out about why you are where you are and why you're stuck. Nobody cares. You don't care. I don't care. The goal is to get you financially free, right? Your mind will give you just bullshit the entire time. Just shut the thing off, compartmentalize it, stick it in the back, and then do what needs to be done. Okay. So where are we going is the first question. Okay, because this is part of it, is it keys out the mind on, okay, like if I think about where am I at? I can think about 8 years ago, okay? Let me reconnect my thing here. I can think about 8 years ago, I was broke, okay? I was actually homeless, right? I was, living on someone's couch in an abandoned house. They didn't know I was there. I wasn't supposed to be there. And so in that moment, if I would have focused on where am I at, I would have been, stuck on that problem of, okay, well, right now I'm in a bad spot. Who's ever done that where it's kind of like in sports where you get injured and all of a sudden you look at the injury and all of a sudden it hurts when it didn't used to, right? Or when you were a little kid, you wreck your bike, you skin your knees up, your knees don't hurt till you look and you see the blood and you look at what's happening and where I'm at, okay? And so that's very similar with this. Is a lot of times with goals, we get stuck on where I'm at, and it ends up making us further focused on all the problems and all the things wrong. And because of that, we don't focus on where we're going. Okay. So focus on where am I going? Where am I going? I'm going to financial freedom. Okay. Now that might not be real to us. And that's why we have, okay, that's phase 6. What phase am I on now? That's the next question is, okay, well, where are we now? Right? Let's say it's me 8 years ago, in debt, earning less than I spend, right? No assets, no savings, no prospects. I was a pizza guy. Right? Not even a place to live. I didn't have a true roof over my head in the sense that was my house. It wasn't my house. I was not supposed to be there. Right? So once I know, okay, I'm trying to get financially independent, where am I now? Okay, maybe I'm broke, homeless, insolvent, financially illiterate. Maybe I am solvent and I'm on phase 2. Maybe I've got some passive income. That's where I currently am at. Well, the next question is, what is the distance between where I'm at and that goal of passive income? Right? That goal of financial independence. What's the distance there? And this is where you can break this down on blueprint phases. Okay. I'm 4 phases away, for example. I'm 2 phases away. Maybe I'm 6 phases away, but at least now I know. Okay. Because the problem is people look at their goal and then they look at where they're at and then they never specify what the distance is. right? And who has ever met that person or maybe been that person where, they have great goals and they're very motivated, right? And they're very hopped up and high energy, but they fall apart when it comes to execution, right? And every time you talk to them, they're in a new opportunity. They're trying a new thing. They've got the new answer. They've got the new solution. And it's always new and it's always different. And they're always excited, but they never actually make progress. Okay. I used to be that person. I can speak from experience that's a coping mechanism. That's what happens when I've not identified the distance between where I'm at and where my goal is and what the distance actually is. I haven't confronted it. Right. And again, it goes back to, random motion. Instead of going through the definition of operating a flow, right, actually following a pathway, I just disperse. I just go blah, and I try everything, right? So I've identified where am I going? Where am I at now? What is the distance? Now, here's the thing that gets people is number 4. The next question most people will ask is they know where they're going, they know where they're at, they know the distance, and then they ask, how long will it take? Okay. This is a very subjective question, and it's actually a bad question. And it's also a victim question. We're going to talk about victim language and non-victim language tonight. This is an example of victim language. This is why I crossed it out. Okay. How long will it take? Makes it a mystery. How long will it take? Puts the responsibility on it instead of me, right? On them instead of me, on it instead of me. It's on outward stuff, right? How long will it take is a passive statement. Like, it's going to happen to me. It's going to take whatever it takes. And I can now complain. Like, who's ever been on a car ride with kids? Right? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? How annoying is that? I know you love your kids, but how annoying is that? How are we there yet? I don't have kids, but I remember being one. I remember annoying the literal hell out of my mom. And she would then wreak havoc on us back because, are we there yet? How long is it going to take? I got to go to the bathroom. Can we stop? Can we this? Can we that? Right? So I crossed this question out because this is a very bad question. And instead, the question should be, what can I do to get there? Right? Where am I going? Where am I at now? What's the distance? And then what can I do to get there? This is Victor language. What, right? I'm identifying a thing, a solution. Can, that's an action. I, that's personal responsibility. Do, again, that's action to get there. That's very specific. There being my final destination. Right. And then that goes back to my blueprint phases. What phases do I need to get through to become financially independent? Right. If I'm on phase 1, then I got to get through phase 1. Then I got to get through phase 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And then finally I'll be on 6. That's what I can do to get there. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take. What can I do to get there? Again, this is personal finances. Okay. It's not wealth dynamics finances where it's our responsibility to get you there faster. No, you want to go faster. You got to do it to get there faster. I can't work out for you. I can't learn about money for you. I can't do your bills for you. I can't save money for you. You have to do that in your own life. So the question becomes, what can I do to get there? And then 5, how will I measure my progress? Okay, this is another excellent question. Okay, because if we didn't install these 2 questions, the mind would say, okay, where am I at? Where do I want to go? Where am I at now? What's the distance? How long will it take to get there? And then what can I do to speed it up? Those would be the questions most of us would ask by default. That would be the thing we'd come up with. We're saying, no, don't ask those last 2. Okay. Ask, what can I do to get there? And then how will I measure my progress? Forget about how long it's going to take, right? And forget about, what you're going to do to get there faster. Like, those things don't matter. How are you going to measure your progress? Because when we talk about speed is an objective thing. There's literally a math equation for speed. Math is not emotional. Math is logic. Right? There's no room for opinions. There's no room for feelings. It's 2 + 2 = 4. If you don't think 2 + 2 = 4, I'm sorry, you're an unintelligent person. That hurts your feelings. I take it up with the math, not me. I'm just telling you what it says. Right? So we look at, okay, well, how will I measure my progress? I don't recommend measuring it in time. Right? Time is not the statistic we're looking for. Time is not a product. In fact, time is not even a real thing. This is why I tell people, don't worry about the time, right? Like Tamara said before, the time was infinity. She didn't have a goal. She was doing nothing. And so I was doing nothing at 1.2. The time was infinity. I was never going to get there. It was going to be a continual trading time for money, serving the 40-week, 40-year life sentence. And it's not even a 40-year definite, because for me, I didn't have anything going. I wasn't going to retire. I was a pizza guy. I was homeless. Right? So when I think about how will I measure my progress, it's not about time. Time isn't arbitrary. Time measures motion. Time doesn't actually exist. It's a man-made equation that we came up with to make sense of motion, right? What really happens is the sun moves around the earth and the planet goes black on one part. That's not time, that's motion, right? When we are in orbit, that's motion, right? We're in a car, it's going fast. We're trying to get somewhere, at a higher rate of speed. We call it time. I want to get there in 15 minutes instead of 20, but time is not the thing that gets us there faster. It's the speed at which we make the vehicle move. And if you look out the window, you can see the changing environment, right? So measuring things in time is a bad idea because it's not a real statistic. It's like dividing an equation by zero. You're always going to get zero. When you measure things with time, the answer is always going to be time. It doesn't solve. Okay. So you have to actually measure it in motion. So I like to measure it in actual financial statistics. I'm going to measure my progress in things like how much income am I earning? How much money am I saving? Okay. How much debt am I paying off? How much have I reduced my taxes? See how those are actual financial changes and numbers, and I can measure them and they have nothing to do with time. Right now, it does have to do with motion because when I increase my income and I save and I do these things, it creates momentum and it's a flow. Like we said, it's a flow, not a dispersal. So when I flow, I get momentum just like a river, the current speeds up, right? Like you would look at the river and say that water is fast or that water is slow, right? Those are again, time, but no, it's actually speed. The current is fast, the current is slow. Why would the current be fast? The current would be fast because all the obstructions got out of the way and it was aligned and all going in the same direction. Right? Why would a current be slow? There was a lot of obstructions. There wasn't enough water, AKA income, right? Maybe there's a bunch of, curves and winds that slow it down. That's distractions and problems and all the stuff we pull into our lives. So when I straighten it out, like we do with the blueprint, this is a straight shot and I get rid of all the distractions, which we do on the blueprint purposefully on the first 2 phases. Okay. First 3, actually, we get rid of all the distractions, all the problems, boom, the water just shoots through. We get ultimate momentum. Okay. But it takes some time. It takes some effort. It takes some energy to get everything set up in that way. Right. So here's the thing that was a hard pill for me to swallow. You guys that love, Nano says, and some confront, it does take some confront. You guys that love quality, even at the expense of maybe going slower, you're going to love this statement. Okay. You guys that love speed, you might hate it because I did. Speed comes from competence alone. The only way that I go fast, and I mean truly fast, is by being competent. Think about like if you're doing any skill set, when you're competent, you can go faster than other people. You can go at a higher rate of speed. Right? If it's math and you've done the equations over and over and over, like think about when you learned the times tables as a kid, you had them memorized down, boom, you could rattle through them like fast. When you didn't know them like me, you had to like count with your fingers and it took you longer. Right. I remember I used to hide in the bathroom when it came to math tests in 2nd grade. Every time without a fail, I would be like, teacher, I have to go to the bathroom. And then I'd spend 15 minutes in there washing my hands and waiting because then I would hope the test would be over and that they'd move on to the next subject and I wouldn't have to take it because I was afraid to fail the math test because it took too long because I wasn't competent. Right. So this is, again, like Nano said, a hard one to confront. We are all incompetent in some area. It's not an offense. There's nothing wrong with you being incompetent. Nobody starts out competent. Okay. You have to build competence. Competence is earned and won, and it's something that you develop over time. Right? It's something you work on constantly to become more competent. Right. So what is competence? Competence, the definition of this word competence means having the necessary ability, knowledge, or skill to do something successfully. Having the necessary ability, right? Able, I can do the thing. I'm actually like able, right? Knowledge, like I have the information and the know-how of it, and then the skill, right? There's going to be a certain way that it has to be done. There's going to be a certain tech that has to be implemented in a certain area. With finances, there's a definite skill to being financially independent, right? There's a definite ability. Someone that doesn't have the ability to go earn income, good luck being financially independent. Someone that doesn't have the ability to be financially disciplined in their decisions, good luck becoming financially independent. Someone that doesn't have the ability to follow a system, good luck becoming financially independent. Right? Knowledge. We talk about knowledge all the time. Someone that's financially illiterate, they're never going to be financially independent. Right? This is the one that gets people. This is the one that sneaks up because a lot of times people think they can supplement it through means. Like if I earn more income or, I have a windfall or I get enough assets, then I can supplement being a financial dumbass by having more assets. No, it's no different than giving a bazooka to someone that's never taken a gun class before. It's just a bad decision waiting to happen. Who heard today about Alec Baldwin shooting the camera girl, right? Like the dude has no idea how a gun works, picks up a prop gun on set, fires it at the camera girl because it's just a prop gun. It turns out it shot her and killed her, right? Because he doesn't have knowledge on something. If he had knowledge about a firearm, Lexi is super into firearms. And she said, you know, if she was on the set, like you treat every gun like it's a loaded gun. That's the number one rule of firearms. You treat every gun like it's loaded. So that comes from lack of knowledge. That's where people are at financially. Okay, it doesn't matter how much means they have, what their income is, what their net worth is, what they've done with their investments, what they've inherited, any of that stuff, what business they run. Like none of that translates to financial literacy. Do you know how you get financial literacy? By studying finances. You don't get financial literacy by running a business. You don't get financial literacy by earning a lot of income. You don't get financial literacy by inheriting money. You get financial literacy by picking up a damn book or turning on a video and studying and doing it over and over and over. Okay. And then that's where you get the skill. Skill comes from actually drilling something, actually applying what's being learned over and over and over until it becomes a skill set. Right. And I believe every single one of us watching this today has a skill set, whether it's money, whether it's an art, whether it's craft, whether it's communication, whether it's a hard skill or a labor. Like we all have skills and talents in life, right? That's stuff we developed and worked on, right? You spent time on that skill. That's why it was a skill. It's something you had a natural affinity for. And you're like, I really like this thing. And so I'm going to do this in my free time and I'm going to work on it. And I'm going to hone it until it becomes a skill, right? So I'm saying with finances, you have to do that. If your skill is dancing, you need to apply the same thing you do with dancing to finance. If your skill is communication and you're an excellent speaker, you need to apply the same interest level and discipline and devotion that you applied to your speaking to finance. Okay, because finance is one of the only things in life that's involuntary. Meaning if I don't become competent at it, it doesn't go away, right? I'm an incompetent artist. I don't understand art. Right? We lived in a house for, what was it? 2 years we lived in Serrano. Yeah. We lived in a house for 2 years. The day we moved out, I noticed the art on the walls. Okay. Cause I don't look at it. It's not something that for me, is of interest. And so I'm not a very talented, from a literal sense, artist. For me, my business is art, my finance is art. And that's how I express my art. But from a traditional stance, you show me a painting, it doesn't do much for me. Okay. So for me, I could go my entire life being incompetent at art. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. Okay. I could go my entire life being incompetent at cooking. Nothing bad is going to happen to me. I can call Uber Eats. They'll bring my food right to me. I don't need to know that. But if I go my entire life without learning about about finances, okay, it's not like art. I'm not going to be okay. It's not like not knowing how to cook. I'm not going to be okay. I'm going to suffer. And my family is going to suffer, and my kids are going to suffer, and my church is going to suffer, and my charities are going to suffer because I am incompetent with finances. And it's going to result in problems, and it's going to result in debt, and it's going to result in insolvency and mistakes and pain that really you don't have to go through if you became competent. Okay. So competence is something that we build and that we win. So how do we get competence? Okay. The first thing we do to get competence is we study. You pick up the book, you watch the video, you listen to the audio, you study, right? Now, studying does not mean I have YouTube on my phone or Wealth Dynamics U on my phone, and also I'm scrolling on Instagram, and also I'm drinking a coffee, and also I'm people watching. No. Studying means you pick up the book, open it. This is the only thing you're doing. You don't have music on in the background. You're not also scrolling on Instagram. You're not, posting on Facebook about how you're reading so you can impress everyone that you can read, right? You're only reading the book, and you're looking up the words, and you're making sure you understand it and you can apply the information that's being read. That's what studying is. Okay. So for me, I didn't have that. When I was in school, I never studied. I was the kid that I was good at bullshitting. When I had a book report, I could read the first page, the last page, pick a few pages in the middle, write a full report, and the teacher thought I read the book. Okay. So I had to learn how to study. That was something I actually had to invest time in and get disciplined at, is sitting still and not multitasking and reading the book or watching the video, making that the only thing in my universe for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. Okay. And I had to initially start with 30 minutes a day because I couldn't handle more than that until I got better at studying. Right. Next thing is drilling. Drilling means I practice the information that I'm learning. So an example of drilling would be, okay, I learn about the sacred account. Okay. I learn about the sacred account. I learn about being able to borrow against it. And I've got the knowledge because I studied, but how do I drill that? For me, I would be drawing that on paper, or I would be taking little, shells or dice or whatever, and I would be demoing it out with the stuff in front of me so I can see what it looks like. I would maybe be going through, different questions that force me to apply, that force me to apply the information, right? What do you do when you take a loan out? Boom, I would have to answer. What do you do when you get cash flow from the investment? Boom, I would have to answer, right? So those are all things that would be involved with drilling. I might even have an accountability partner, someone that I drill with, and we drill each other on finances, okay? And then finally is application. I've actually got to do the thing I'm talking about. This is the one that the internet's great, social media is great, all of that's awesome. But I believe that the error that has caused is learning up without ever applying. Just mass consuming and binging on influencers and podcasts and articles and videos and posts and all this stuff that people have out there. Some of it's great, some of it's not. But people tend to binge watch and then they never apply the information. I talked about this in a course maybe a year or two ago. This is being intellectually obese. All I do is eat and gorge myself on information that I never use. And because of that, I become intellectually obese. No different than if I gorged myself on food and then I never exercised. What would happen? I would become obese. Right? So when I study and I learn and I tune into the webinar every week and I push and I do all this stuff to learn, but then I never use it, I'm becoming intellectually obese. I'm consuming calories I'm never going to burn. Right? Financial calories, intellectual calories. So application has to be there. This means that I learn about the sacred account, then I actually go get one and I apply the information. Right? I learn about investing and then I actually go invest. I don't just keep my money hoarded away in cash. Right? Actually applying the information. And then finally is repetition. This is the one I used to hate, to be quite honest. Most of you fast people probably hate it too, because we're like, we already did that. Why am I doing this again? We already learned that. Why am I hearing this again? I already saw that. Why am I watching this again? Repetition is the only way to master something, to actually become certain on that thing. You do it over and over and over. Right? Think about when you drive home. The reason why you don't need a map is because you do it so often. You come to a new place, you need a GPS because you've never been there. Right? So when you do something over and over and over and you apply it and you do it and you apply it and you do it, that's how you build certainty. And so for me to become competent, I have to go into it knowing these 4 things must be done. I can't not do any of them. If I don't do even one of these things, I will not become certain. I will not become competent. And if I'm not competent, I'm not going to be fast. Okay, so what does that mean for me? That means that if I'm watching Wealth Dynamics University, I'm not just watching the video, I'm actually like studying it. I'm pausing it. I'm taking notes. I'm clearing the words out. Everything I say in those courses is being said for a reason. Why am I saying that? Ask yourself that question and make it your chore to go find the answer to it. Even if that means you watch the segment, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Okay. Drilling something, like I learned it. Like I said, for me, I take notes. I like to sketch things out. So I look at, okay, I learned about this. Boom. I'm going to sketch it out on paper so I can see how it actually works. Okay. I'm going to think about different scenarios in my head, or maybe have someone ask me different scenarios of how to apply what I've been learning so that I know when it comes to game time, it's not the first time I've ever thought about it. Okay. And then application, I'm big on doing things. When I learn something, I've got to do it. Repetition, I know that I'm going to watch the video more than once. I'm going to take the course more than once. Okay. It's not one and done. It's okay. I need to consistently and constantly do this until it gets to a point of mastery where I know what's about to be said at that moment in the video before it's being said. Okay. That's next level. This is one of my secrets, right? And I think I get it from bodybuilding because you just pick up a weight and you move it over and over and over. That's what I did in high school all the way through till I was about 21, 22. I competed as a bodybuilder. And so I was really good at picking up the squat bar and just sitting down to the floor and standing up over and over and over and repeating the same action over and over and over until I got the result that I wanted. And if I didn't get the result that I wanted, I did it more, right? Most of us are naturally opposite of that. We try something once. If it doesn't go the way we wanted, we quit. We're done. And then we make the thing wrong and we're like, oh, I didn't want to do squats anyways. I heard you can injure your back doing that. Or, I found this different course and it's a little bit easier. Or this other person is more motivating to listen to, whatever the excuse would be, because we didn't buckle down and force the repetition to happen. right? With bodybuilding, when I was training, there was this idea of training past failure, right? Like when you're doing a set, right? This is a real thing. When you're doing a set, let's say you're doing a set of 12, the first 10 reps basically don't matter, right? It's at the point where you get to 10 and you can't do any more reps and you force out another 2. Same thing with when you're running. Who's ever heard of the second wind? When you're running, like the entire point that you're running up to when you get tired doesn't matter. That's called pre-exhaustion, right? It's the point of now you're tired and you keep running until you get your second wind. That's why you run. Okay, we have this backwards and we're like, well, I ran for 20 minutes or I worked out or I watched the video. It's not about the 20 minutes. It's about you got to the point of failure and then you went past it. You persisted. You kept going. And because of that, you build repetition. Okay. And that, again, also builds mental toughness. Like you give me a monotonous activity, I'll beat anybody at it because I'm just so good at the repetition thing because I practiced it for so long. And this does take practice and it does take intentionality of knowing I'm about to go into heavy repetition on something and I'm going to try and quit and I'm not going to want to do it. And I need to know all of that stuff's going to happen ahead of time so that I can keep doing it anyways. Right. So these are all things that help you get fast. Competence is the main one. What isn't fast? What are things that aren't fast? Okay. Skipping steps is not fast, right? Like think about it. If I'm skipping steps, what am I really doing? My goal was to go from A to B. Skipping a step means instead of going from A to B, I changed the point that B is so that I can go there instead and be like, ha, I'm faster. No, you're not faster. You went to a different destination, right? I just went to New York. It's like me getting on board, the Delta terminal, and I've got, my concourse and my terminal, and I go to the gate, and the gate's supposed to be the one in New York, and I'm like, oh man, it would be faster for me to go to Tennessee instead. Like technically, yeah, like that going to Tennessee is faster than New York, but it's not New York. If I get on the Tennessee airplane, I'm not going to New York. I'm not going to my destination. I'm going somewhere else. Sure, it's less time in the plane, but the point wasn't less time in the plane. The point was to go to New York. Right? So skipping steps just for the sake of speed is not faster because now I would be in Tennessee. I would have to rebook my flight. That's more time, more money. I would have to then, wait for that airplane. I have to get on that one and, do the layovers and all that stuff to get to New York. It takes time and adds it to the equation. Right? So skipping steps is not fast. What does that look like with finance? It's I'm going to skip the blueprint steps. I know I'm on phase 0. I'm on phase 1. I'm just going to skip to 3. I'm just going to skip the tax planning. I'm going to skip to the investing. Great, but it's going to catch up with you. Everything is here for a reason, guys. This is again, we studied the top 1%, find out what did they do. I did it all myself. Then we put it in an organized format of, okay, you follow this, this is what will happen. Okay. If you don't follow it, I don't know what's going to happen because that's not what the wealthy did. And that's not what I did. I can't vouch that if you skip, the step of doing the HELOC, or you skip doing disability insurance, or you skip doing your phase 3 and you try and go directly to phase 4, you just try and skip the whole thing and do the accredited investments. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be financial independence, because if it was, Rockefeller would have did it. Carnegie would have did it. The Rothschilds would have did it. JP Morgan would have did it. They didn't do it. I didn't do it. Right. So you can go off into experiment land, but I can't vouch for what's going to happen. Going out of sequence, rearranging steps, right? Like I'm going to skip this one, but I'll come back to it. Okay, guys, going forward to then go backwards is not fast. That's double the distance. It's like saying, I'm going to swim across the lake, right? But then halfway through deciding I'm going to turn back around and then go back the other way. You're going double the distance. Okay. So if I'm going from phase, 2 to phase 3 and 4, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to skip 3 and I'll come back to 3 later. And you go 2 to then 4, 5, and 6, and you get to 6 and you're like, okay, now I need to go all the way back to 3. Do you see how much distance you've got to cover? Right? Like to draw it out for you, let's say there's different points here and we decide we're going to skip this one. Okay. We're here and we go, boom, we skip this. Aha, I got fast. I did random motion and I experienced movement. Boom, boom, boom. Then we have to go all the way back here. Okay, I basically doubled the distance. Okay, not only that, but this is not just organized in sequence for speed. This is organized in sequence for actual like momentum, right? So the next step gets easier because I did the current step, which means if I skip the current step, the next step is actually going to be harder. So it's going to take longer because it's harder because I didn't do the prior step. You see that? So that's, again, skipping steps is not something that speeds it up. Temporary alternatives. I call these Band-Aids, right? If I have a financial gunshot wound, a Band-Aid's not going to help. I've got to remove the bullet. Sure, it's going to take longer to remove the bullet, but I cannot run with the bullet in my chest, right? So I have to actually skip doing temporary alternatives, looking for easy solutions, short fixes, quick ideas, and actually spend the time to do something the right way. What would an example of this be? An example of this could be instead of, let's say, I have trouble even thinking of these because I'm so oriented with the blueprint. Temporary solution would be, okay, I have debt. Instead of paying it, I'm going to default on all of it. Okay. And then once I default, I'll just try and go back and fix it later, but at least I'll have more cash flow now so that I can save money. That would be a temporary solution. No, the permanent solution is get rid of the debt. Okay. There might be, plans and methods we can use to speed it up, like professional services we offer, but me just saying I'm not going to pay it. Okay. Another one would be, okay, well, I don't want to pay my taxes because that takes money away from my investment. So I'm just not going to file my taxes. Guess what? We can't let you do most of the services we offer if you have backfiled taxes, like you haven't filed prior years. So now we have to go back and fix that. So again, temporary alternatives are not shortcuts. Needless creativity and inventiveness. This is another one that is not fast, right? Instead of thinking about getting something done, you're like, okay, how can I think out of the box? Out of the box is great if we've already tried the system, right? Like the wheel is round. So before we're like, oh, I bet I could invent something better than the wheel. Maybe let's try the wheel first because the wheel might actually work. And sometimes the amount of time and energy we have to put into inventing and creating something and failing over and over, we could just go use the wheel, right? Like we don't need to invent everything over again. So that's, again, like these financial strategies that we have been trying to implement are hundreds of years old. Some of them are thousands of years old. They've been working for hundreds and thousands of years. We don't need to invent a new one. Okay. So that's, again, another thing that's not actually fast. And then the last one, this is what I used to be terrible at, is being critical and antagonistic over speed. Okay. Like I again, hate things going slow. I'm very impatient. So when someone was impatient, I would literally beat them up over it when someone was slow. Or if someone was slow, I would criticize them in my head. I'm like, man, I can't wait till this person's done. What's taking so long? Yada, yada, yada. Sometimes people take long because it takes long, right? Or sometimes they're focused on quality instead of speed. Okay. Being critical doesn't actually make me faster. It makes it worse for everybody. Nobody likes working with a critical person. Nobody likes working with someone that's antagonistic or mean, right? There's a certain amount of goodwill that you naturally have with people where they're going to be nice to you just because they're supposed to. You use this critical or this antagonistic button, you start using that goodwill up, right? So when you're working with vendors, you're working with our staff, you're working with other clients, you're working with whoever it will be in your life financially, even your spouse in some cases, if you're critical or antagonistic with them over how fast things are going, you start draining the goodwill for them to want to help you. Right? It's like deflating the tires on your own car as you're driving it. Like, sure, the vehicle got lighter, and yeah, sure, lighter things travel faster than heavier things, but you also don't have air in your tires. And when you need those tires, they're not going to be there. Okay. So again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to speed things up. There's nothing wrong with wanting to help people move faster, but being critical and antagonistic with someone is not going to help them do that. That was a lesson I had to learn. I had to learn people don't respond to that. People like the carrot, not the stick. Okay. I might like the stick, but that's a me thing, not a them thing. That says more about me. It means I like hitting people with sticks. There's probably something wrong with that. Okay. So this is not something that speeds it up. What is fast? Okay. When I want to go fast, for me personally, this is what I do. When I want to go fast, I study. Okay. I study the thing I want to be fast at. That's the first thing I look at. I then drill it. We talk about that. The other thing I do is I earn more income. Income will speed up everything. The more income I earn, the faster I can save, the faster I can pay off debt, the faster I can invest, the faster all of the blueprints go, right? So earning more income, saving more money, that's another way to speed things up. Getting to my next blueprint step. When I'm stuck on speed and I'm like, oh, I want to go faster. Good. Let's get to the next step. Okay. Like, stop thinking about step 6 if you're on number 2. Think about step 3. Get through 2 on to 3. Boom. Do that as fast as you can. Get from 3 to 4. You get there one step at a time. Investing wisely. One of the ways to go fast is not losing money, not locking money up till you're 60, not putting in liquid or volatile investments that you don't understand. And then finally, avoiding distractions and mistakes. That's another way to go fast, is economizing, not being distracted and not having a bunch of mistakes. Okay. Now I think about this like driving. Okay. Anyone that drives, again, most of us do, we have a responsibility when we drive. People realize, okay, I'm at the wheel of a car. I have my life in my hands. I have other people's life in my hands. And so we're usually very responsible on the matter of driving. So doing these things up here, okay, skipping steps, going out of sequence, all this stuff is the equivalent of impaired or distracted driving, right? Like you wouldn't get under in a car and drive under the influence or drive while intoxicated. You wouldn't drive if you had road rage, right? Hopefully, like if you got so angry you couldn't focus on the road, that would be a problem. You wouldn't drive well if you had irrational fears, where you're afraid of every car that comes near you and every turn and every light. It would slow you down. These are things that can slow you down in your car. Okay. The equivalent can slow you down with finances. You don't drive well, you go slower when you're multitasking. You're falling asleep at the wheel. Like these are all things that would slow you down in a car. Most of us would never do them, right? But why do we do that with our finances? Most people do these with their finances. They do their finances under the influence of wrong information, right? Or like temporary solutions where it's going to help me now but hurt me later, right? Or they drive while they're under the influence of maybe bad decisions or thinking about things in the past or being stuck on what they did wrong, or maybe taking advice from unqualified people. Or they do their finances and they get mad every time something wrong happens with their finances. They get mad because they didn't make enough money, or they didn't budget, or so and so was too slow, or whatever it was, right? Like these are all things that one for one apply with finances as well. Okay. We would never do them when we drive because it slows us down and it makes driving less safe and it makes it more dangerous for everyone, including ourselves. But that's the same case with finances. Most of us do these things with finances to some degree. Okay. And so I want to challenge everyone tonight to change your mindset on this. Okay. I'm not going to operate my finances under the influence of bad information, right? Or intoxicated thinking about the past or what went wrong, right? Or doing it while I'm experiencing misemotion or anger or antagonism or irrational fears about money that don't make any sense. And I don't have any way to base them off anything. I just have them and I buy into them all the time, right? Or multitasking where I'm doing too many things at once, or, falling asleep at the wheel where I'm not paying attention to my money and I just hope that I can ignore it and it's going to work out, right? Money's not a Tesla, guys. You can't just get in, hit autopilot and hope that you're there. Okay. So how do I go fast? You got to study. Okay. So this is again, my rule: study, study, study. That's number one. Number two is the 24-hour rule. This is something I learned at the age of 18 from a mentor of mine. If I learn something and do not apply it within 24 hours, it's gone forever. Right. That was the mindset I adopted. Meaning when I learn something, I have to apply it in the next 24 hours, or I'm probably never going to. And it's like when I learn something, now there's a clock going off in my head of I have to apply this information. Okay. So applying that 24-hour rule really helped me taking the information that I learned and saying, okay, I got to apply this today before this time tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm never going to have this information again because I'll forget it, or I'll be distracted, or I'll just, shove it off to the side because I didn't think it was worth using. Okay. I earn massive income. That's step number 3. If I want to go fast, I automatically increase my income. That's one of the first ways that I go about that. I follow the blueprint steps. Okay, this is your friend when it comes to going fast. Follow the steps, get to the next phase. Again, the 3 questions: which step did I just finish? Which one am I on now? Which one is next? Don't listen to down stats. Okay, if I'm trying to go fast, I'm not going to listen to anyone on the topic of money if they have lower stats than I do. Okay, or if they're not where I want to be at, even like if their ideal scene or where they're currently at is not where I want to be, I'm not going to listen to them because they're going to slow me down. Okay. I measure things by statistic. When I really want to go fast, I pay attention to my numbers. I don't pay attention to time or speed. I pay attention to my income, my savings rate, my debt to income ratio, my passive income, like all the real indicators that we have. Okay. And the number 7 is I look for victim language in my life and I get rid of it. Okay. This is the last thing we're going to cover tonight. What is victim language? Why are we talking about this on the topic of going fast with finances? Because victim language takes you out of the driver's seat. Okay. And victim language can be external, meaning I actually use it in my communication with others. It can also be internal, where I use it with myself in my head. Okay. So check this out. What is victim language? And this is from a book on our recommended reading list called Question Behind the Question by John Miller. One of my favorite books. Victim language are questions like why, who, when, statements like they, we, and you, passive statements, complaining, and procrastination. Okay. So check this out. Like if something happens, let's say, I lose money in my investment. Okay, that's a scenario. Let's say that happens. If I'm asking why, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like that's a victim question. You see, like knowing why it happened is not going to help. Usually when someone asks why me, why this, why that, it's not a solution oriented thing where they're like doing an investigation to find a solution. No, they're usually like in self-pity, right? So these questions that begin with why are usually victim language, and I avoid them entirely in my vocabulary, both externally and internally. Okay. The other one is who. Who is usually a blame placing question. Whose fault is it? Who did it? Who's responsible? Right. And it assumes that it wasn't me. Because if there's a who and I don't know who the who is, now I can go ahead and be like, oh, I don't know whose fault it is. Again, it's personal finances. It's your fault. No one else is responsible for your finances. So asking who doesn't help. When, this is another one. Time doesn't exist. Why would I ask when? When means that I'm being served at the dinner and the table and my dinner's late. And I can be like, when is the food coming out? And it's the waiter's fault. Again, when is another question that places blame more easily. Statements like they, it takes the focus off me. Statements like we, the inclusive one, it softens the blow of me or I. Statements like you, it puts the focus on you and the responsibility on you instead of myself. Passive statements, like instead of saying, we're going to the beach, right? That's an active statement, okay? Like a passive statement would be like, I want to go to the beach. Then go. Right? Like we're going to the beach or we're not. Which one is it going to be? Like, or I'm going to read my book versus I want to read my book. I want to read my book is a passive statement. I'm going to read my book is a definitive action statement. Again, complaining, any kind of complaint, criticism, antagonism, general, like this is taking too long. They did this wrong. Why is this happening? I don't like that. I don't like that. These are all victim language. Procrastination, anything that pushes something off to the future that could have been done now. Okay. All of this is victim vocabulary. Whether you say it or whether you think it, this pulls you out of the driver's seat. Okay. So if I want to stay in the driver's seat, I need to use victor language. Okay. Victor language is what, right? So instead of why, like check this out. I could say, let's say I'm trying to pay off my debt. I could say, why do I have so much debt? Right? Or when am I going to be out of debt? Okay. Those don't actually help me in any way. A different question is, what do I need to do to get out of debt? How can I get out of debt faster? Do you see the difference there? So when I think about this is solution oriented and it puts the responsibility on me, putting the word I in my statements. I am going to get out of debt. What do I need to do to get out of debt? Instead of what do you need to do? What do they do? When are you gonna, right? Using the word I, using action statements, things that are direct action. Boom, A to B. I'm going to, I will, I intend to, right? Like these are all things that are action statements. And then instead of complaints, offering help and solutions. My rule is if I'm going to complain about something, I have to help. If I'm not going to help, I can't complain. If I'm going to criticize someone, I've got to help them. If I'm not going to help them, I'm not going to criticize them. If I'm going to point out a fault, I am automatically responsible for helping that person fix the fault. If I'm not going to, I'm not going to point out the fault. Okay, that's the rule that I try and operate with. And so that's, again, help and solutions. And then instead of procrastination, I do deadlines and I do now. Okay, these are all victor language. And again, this can be external or internal, but again, it's the vocabulary, the dialogue that we're using. It says a lot about what our intentions are. If my intention is to pass off responsibility, okay, because this is what can happen. Someone can mask it with, I want to go fast, but then use all these words. When is it going to happen? Why is it going fast enough? Who's messing up? Who's too slow? They're going too slow. We need to make this happen faster. You need to speed it up. And it's all this stuff that I want to go fast, but all the language says I'm not responsible. I'm not trying to go fast. I'm not even trying to be in the driver's seat. Okay. If I want to go fast, then I'm not using this language, which I should be. It means that I don't really want to go fast. I want to say that I want to, but I really want to make it everyone else's fault that I am not. Okay, so again, these are all victor language. So again, victor language keeps me in the driver's seat and winning. So the three things that we want to focus on, we want to focus on competence. Okay, so again, studying, drilling, applying, the triangle of wealth. These are things that will speed you up, earn, save, invest. Okay, and then blueprint to financial freedom, momentum. If I get momentum moving from one blueprint step to the next, that's going to give me speed and it's going to help me go faster as well. These three things are like my number one game. Like as soon as I want to go faster, boom, I'm going to get on these. Okay. And then I'm going to check my language and I'm going to make sure that I'm using victor language, not victim language. Okay. Now these equal speed, which then equate to financial freedom. Okay. Now I want to end where I started. My last point is the number one way to lose speed is to invalidate your progress. Okay. I'm talking to you fast people, right? Like me, we get going so fast, we forget what we already did. Right. I had a Facebook reminder come up today and it reminded me that 8 years ago, I was homeless sleeping on a couch. Okay. And I look at my results and I'm like, man, I'm not there yet. I'm not going fast enough. I want to get more progress. I want to achieve my potential. That's great. Never get rid of that, but also realize where you were and how far you've come. Okay. Because if I start invalidating my progress, then I'm gonna say speed's not speed when it is. Right. Like if I've gone from at the very beginning here, we talked about distance. If I've gone a very long distance and it's factually a long distance, but I invalidate myself by saying it's not, and it's not a long distance and it takes too long when it really is, that's going to make it harder for me to keep going because now I told myself I wanted to do something. I did the thing successfully and then I invalidated myself for doing it. Like think about if you did that to your kid. If you were like, hey, pick up the cup, and then they picked it up and you slapped them over the head and you're like, that's dumb. Don't do that. Like they're going to be so confused, right? Why would you do that to yourself? We do that in our own minds. Okay. So that's something that we want to watch out for is an invalidation of progress. So again, I said this at the beginning, becoming a client of Wealth Dynamics is already speed because prior to Wealth Dynamics, usually people are financially illiterate, insolvent, and trying to retire or do nothing. And if they try and retire, their goal is to die before they run out of money. Moving from that to even phase 0 of the blueprint is progress. You're already going to get there faster. Like if you're here today and you're like, man, 20 years to financial freedom, that sounds like a long time, or 10 years, that sounds like a long time. Okay. But compared to what? Okay. I'm 30. I'm going to be 30 next year. So if I did the old plan, which is to 65, guys, that's 35 years. It would take me 35 years to be financially independent. I'm not about to complain about 10, right? Or if I'm doing nothing, it's going to take me infinity years because I would never get there. I'm not about to complain that it's going to take me 10 or 15 years to get there. That's faster automatically. Okay. So anything sooner than your old route is speed. Like you can give yourself a pat on the back and say, even though I'm doing the blueprint, I'm on phase 0 or 1 or 2, that's better than where I was. And that's progress and that's speed. And I can look at that and I can validate that knowing all the stuff we talked about tonight, right? I'm going to apply everything we talked about. I'm going to follow what we talked about tonight, but I'm also going to know that I've made a hell of a lot of progress. Okay. Some of us, we dig ourselves into incredibly odd situations financially, 6 figures in consumer debt, student loans, tax bills, lawsuits, divorce settlements. Like we get into some weird situations financially and then we handle them. And while we're handling them and making progress, we have to look at that and be like, wow, I handled the hell out of that. Like, good job. Like I'm doing what I should be doing. Most people couldn't even confront it and I'm handling it right now. Even if it takes you 2 years just to get out of debt, you're at least going to be out of debt. That's more than most can say. Okay. So guys, what I want to do is I want to open this up for questions. I know we covered quite a bit tonight. So again, if you're on Zoom, drop your questions in the comments. I want you thinking about application. I want you thinking about, again, Victor language. What can I do? How can I apply this? Action statements. How can I get this done? Right? Help and solutions. What are the things that I should be thinking about? Deadlines. What are my timelines? What are my goals? Right? Those are the things I want you thinking about with your questions tonight. Let me go ahead and jump onto Facebook first. Again, if you're in Zoom, drop your comments. If you guys are watching the replay and you're on YouTube or whatever, you can drop your comments. We always answer them even after the fact. All right. Lots of people tuning in tonight, guys. And again, share this. If this helped you, share the message, get this out there. This is probably material that could change someone's life. I know 8 years ago, if I was, on the couch homeless and I saw this video, this probably would have given me the kick in the ass that I needed. Sean, good to see you. Brad, Justin, good to see you guys. Vanessa says, wow, y'all's rags to riches story. So eye-opening and inspiring forever. And literally anyone can do it. That's very true. Justin says, I've completed or have Wealth Dynamics working on phases 0 through 3. I have a sense of urgency like never before to get to phase 6. In my mind, phase 6 was a great idea when I started, but now I feel like it is my responsibility. That's amazing. And guys, that's the same thing I went through, what Justin just described. And I bet a lot of clients could relate with this. When you first start, it's like almost like a fairy tale. Like, man, I could be financially independent, right? I could have passive income greater than my savings, expenses, and taxes. And it's like a dream. as you start doing the blueprints and as you start making steps further towards it, right? You're getting closer to the goal. Like Justin said, you start realizing it's real, and you also see the dominoes start to fall, and you know what's about to happen. And then you're like, okay, I have to do this now, right? It does become a responsibility. Jizwan says, a philosopher once said, the way to happiness is a high-speed road to those who know where the edges are. Others say, test fast, fail fast, adjust fast. The blueprint of financial freedom is our guiding light to taking purposeful, responsible action and reaching our goal, not only as fast, but as effectively as possible. That's awesome. Yeah. And again, it's about knowing, like what Jizwan said, knowing where the edges are. And then you just stay in the lane, right? The test of true competence is the end result. Very true. Justin says, I know how to treat a sucking chest wound. That may help. Okay, cool. So if you get shot, we're gonna have Justin help you out. He's officially the in-house chest wound bullet hole treatment guy. Justin says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Very true. Vanessa says, how do you know that Rockefeller, Carnegie, and JP Morgan use this blueprint? So that's a good question, Vanessa. I studied them. I read their biographies. I studied what they did. And then I took what they did and I organized it into a blueprint. So this book obviously wasn't around when they were around. So they didn't literally use the blueprint. The blueprint is based off of what they did use. So I know the sequence of what they did, how they did it, why they did it, when they did it. And then I put that into an organized plan being the blueprint. All right, let's see what we have on Zoom here tonight as well. All right, let's see here. All right, good to see you guys all on Zoom. Nano says, focus on the abilities, on what you can do. We validate the abilities and we get more of it. That's very true. So Nano has a good point. Nano says he talks about the sacred account for a living, and he's done the course multiple times. Okay, so going over it again and again, he's talking about the repetition factor there. Guys, he works here and he's watched it over and over and over, and he continues to. Nano says, realize that phase 0 can be a lot of cleanup, and the messier it is, the more time it takes, especially when trying to remove a leech from our lines such as Wall Street. Yeah, so that's another thing to point out, is that a lot of the stuff like on phase 0, financial illiteracy, what that means is we have learned not only not learned about finances, but we've also learned wrong information about finances for sometimes decades, right? And so that can mean that we spent decades getting wrong information. Phase 0 is about becoming financially literate and starting to actually learn the truth about money. And so that means that we have to remove all of the stuff we learned that was wrong and then start to add in the good stuff. And so that can take some time. Or paying off debt. We didn't get into debt immediately. We're not going to get out of debt immediately. Nano mentions Wall Street and banks. If you've got 401k plans and retirement plans, or you have mortgages, or you have a savings account, setting things up that get you out of that system is like a jailbreak. They don't want you out. So that's not going to be instantaneous. Sometimes these projects will take time because of what we did to get into them, and also who we're attached to within that area or that realm. Nano says, keep in mind, there isn't a company out there to help a person walk step by step. They may provide pieces of the puzzle, but not in a proper sequence or in the proper gradient. That's great. That's a good point. Yeah. And that's the thing, guys. Like, if you took everything in the blueprint, and this is kind of like Vanessa's question, you took everything in the blueprint and you just took everything that these guys did to be successful and you threw it in a box, that's a puzzle, right? Like you're not doing, you're solving, you're figuring out the puzzle. Okay. So what we did is we solved the puzzle. We said, okay, we already did the puzzle. You don't have to do it. You can just now follow the puzzle. Like, you can follow what's on there. You can follow the map. Good. So I think that is all the questions that we have here. Oh, Nano had one more comment. Nano says, this is banks and Wall Street. They'll pretend that they are helping you to even get on the phone. So you may think they're helping you, but it's a total trick. And it's part of the competence in financial literacy. Yeah. So guys, again, like Nano's pointing out, like, who we're dealing with. Sometimes when we're trying to go fast, and this goes back to getting rid of the down stats, right? Down stats can be people that are dumb or illiterate or they have no goals. It can also be people that are injuring me. Like that's a down stat. That's not a thing that helps me. That's a thing that hurts me. So when I have money, like with Wall Street, for example, they know that I'm financially illiterate. They're riding on it. Their entire business model is based on the fact that I'm financially illiterate and they can take advantage of that. These are people that caused the tech bubble in 2001. These are the people that caused 2008. These are the people that crashed the stock market in 2020, right? So if they can do that kind of stuff, imagine what they can do with me one-on-one, right? And they expect me to be financially illiterate. So part of me being fast is getting rid of them, the banks, Wall Street, the IRS, these suppressive groups, and then also being financially literate so that they can't attack me. They can't use my own illiteracy against me. Okay. So guys, what I want to do is I'm going to wrap up here for tonight. I think that's all the questions that we have on Zoom and on Facebook. If you are watching this and you have not grabbed a copy of my book, Blueprint to Financial Freedom, grab one now. You can go to jerryfetta.com/B2F. Again, that's the letter B, the number 2, the letter F. And you can get a copy of the book. Tamara says, we are in control, not them. That is exactly right. And to be in control, we have to do a lot of the things we talked about tonight. Control is a active thing, right? It's a constant thing to be in control because these are billion-dollar and trillion-dollar groups that will easily take the control away from us if we don't keep our grip tight. That's all I've got for you guys tonight. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week.